What you're seeing on your screen right now is a raw stone that was found on the side of a road. That's right, a precious stone found on the side of a road. But despite that, if you pay attention, you'll notice that at first glance, it doesn't attract much attention. And that's because most precious stones in their raw state are more opaque, without shine, usually covered in dirt and dust. That's why most people walk past many of them without even realizing there's something valuable on the ground. But after polishing, this same stone looks exactly like this, with its translucent interior visible, intense color, and facets that gave this specimen a market value of $400 when it was sold. This kind of story happens all the time. Many people find raw stones with real appreciation potential, but by not knowing how to identify the right signs, three things end up happening. Either the person ends up discarding the material, or keeps it in a drawer for years without knowing what it is, or worse still, sells for pennies something that could be worth much more. In other words, many opportunistic buyers take advantage of this lack of knowledge to pay $5 or $10 for a stone that, after being cut and polished, can be resold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So in today's video, you're going to learn 3 technical and practical signs that reveal whether a stone has the potential to gain value after cutting and polishing. These are real geological characteristics that professional lapidaries and experienced prospectors use to decide whether it's worth investing time and work on a stone or keeping it in its raw state. And after understanding these signs, you'll never look at a raw stone the same way again. The first and most reliable sign that a rough stone will gain value after polishing is translucency under direct light. And this is something most beginners completely overlook. They look at a stone, see an opaque surface covered in dirt or weathering, and assume that's what the entire stone looks like inside. But the reality is very different. Many valuable gemstones appear dull and lifeless on the outside because their surfaces have been exposed to the elements for years, sometimes centuries. Rain, wind, temperature changes, and chemical weathering create a thin outer layer that hides the true nature of the material beneath. That's why experienced gem hunters always carry a strong flashlight or headlamp with them in the field. When you hold a rough stone up to bright light and shine the beam through it from behind, you're essentially bypassing that weathered crust and getting a direct look at the internal structure. If light passes through the stone, even just a little bit, and you can see a faint glow or a shift in color along the edges, that's translucency. And translucency is one of the strongest indicators that a stone has lapidary potential. Let's be clear about what translucency actually means. It doesn't mean the stone has to be perfectly transparent like glass. In fact, most gemstones used in jewelry are translucent, not transparent. Translucency means light penetrates the material, but gets scattered internally, creating a soft glow rather than a clear view through the stone. This is exactly the property that gives polished cabochons their depth and richness. When a lapidary cuts and polishes a translucent stone, light enters the surface, bounces around inside, and exits at different angles, producing that glowing effect that makes gems so attractive. Now here's the practical part. In the field, you need to test this correctly. Take the stone and hold it close to a bright light source, whether that's direct sunlight or a high-powered flashlight. Position the light behind the stone and look at the opposite edge. If you see even a thin band of color or a faint orange, red, green, or yellow hue glowing along the rim, you're looking at a stone with internal transparency. Even if the center appears dark, that edge glow tells you there's potential inside. Common materials that show this behavior include chalcedony, agate, jasper with translucent zones, carnelian, aventurine, certain quartzes, and even some feldspars. In metamorphic terrains, you might find garnet fragments that look completely black until you shine a light through them and suddenly see deep red or wine tones along the edges. The same goes for darker varieties of jade, where nephrite can appear nearly opaque in hand, but reveals olive green translucency when backlit. The reason this sign is so important is that translucency directly affects how a stone responds to polishing. When you grind and polish an opaque rock, you're essentially creating a smooth, reflective surface. That can look nice, but it doesn't add much value because the stone remains visually flat. But when you polish a translucent material, you're opening a window into the stone's interior. light starts traveling deeper, interacting with internal structures, color zones, and inclusions. The stone gains dimension and depth, and that's what buyers and collectors pay for. Let me give you a real example. A rough piece of carnelian found in a riverbed might look like a dull orange pebble with a dusty surface. But if you test it with a flashlight and see a warm, glowing red-orange hue penetrating several millimeters into the stone, you know it's worth keeping. After tumbling or cabochon cutting, that same piece can turn into a vibrant gem with a glossy, almost liquid appearance. Depending on size and quality, finished carnelian cabochons sell for anywhere from $10 to $40 per stone in the US market, and larger, flawless pieces can go higher. The same logic applies to agate. A raw agate nodule often looks like a plain gray or brown rock, but when you shine light through a thin edge or a naturally fractured surface, you might see bands of color, zones of translucency, or even small pockets of quartz crystals inside. That internal structure is what makes the stone valuable once it's sliced and polished. A high-quality polished agate slab with vivid banding and good translucency can sell for $50 to $200 depending on size, while common opaque material might only fetch $5 to $10. The second critical sign that a rough stone will increase in value after polishing is hardness. And this is not optional. If a stone is too soft, it doesn't matter how beautiful it looks or how much translucency it has. It simply won't hold a polish, and it won't be durable enough for most jewelry applications. That's why professional lapidaries and gem collectors use hardness as one of the first screening criteria when evaluating rough material in the field. Hardness is measured using the Mohs scale, which ranks minerals from 1 to 10 based on their resistance to scratching. Talc is 1, the softest. Diamond is 10, the hardest. For a stone to be worth polishing and using in jewelry, it generally needs to be at least 5.5 on the Mohs scale. Below that threshold, the material is too soft to take a durable polish and will scratch easily during normal wear. Above 5.5, the stone becomes practical for cutting, polishing, and setting into rings, pendants, or decorative objects. So how do you test hardness in the field without laboratory equipment? The answer is simple. You use reference materials with known hardness values and perform scratch tests. This is a standard technique used by geologists, prospectors, and gem hunters worldwide. And it's surprisingly accurate when done correctly. Here's how it works. A steel knife blade or a piece of hardened steel has a hardness of around 5.5. Window glass sits at about 5.5 to 6. Quartz, one of the most common minerals on Earth, has a hardness of 7. If you carry these three reference materials with you, you can quickly determine whether a stone is soft, medium, or hard. Start by trying to scratch the stone with your fingernail. If your nail leaves a visible mark, the stone is very soft, probably below 2.5, and not worth considering for lapidary work. Next, try scratching it with a copper coin or a piece of brass. If the coin scratches the stone, it's softer than 3.5 and still not suitable. Now take a steel knife or a steel file and apply firm pressure while dragging the edge across the stone's surface. If the steel leaves a clear scratch, the stone is softer than 5.5. But if the stone resists the steel and either doesn't scratch at all or only shows a faint mark that wipes away, you're dealing with a material that's 5.5 or higher. To push the test further, try scratching a piece of glass with the stone. If the stone scratches the glass easily, it's at least 6 or higher. And if you have a small quartz crystal or a quartz pebble with you, try scratching the unknown stone with the quartz. If quartz scratches it, the stone is softer than 7. If the stone scratches quartz, or if neither scratches the other, you're looking at a hard material, possibly 7 or above. Why does this matter so much? Because hardness directly affects polishing results and market value. Softer stones, even if colorful or translucent, tend to polish unevenly. The surface may look smooth at first, but under magnification or after handling, you'll see tiny scratches, pits, and dull zones. These imperfections reduce the stone's visual appeal and its resale value. Harder stones, on the other hand, take a brilliant, mirror-like polish that lasts. The surface stays smooth and reflective, even after years of use. which is exactly what buyers want. Let's look at some examples. Calcite, a common mineral with beautiful colors and translucency, has a hardness of only 3. That means it scratches very easily, and even though you can polish it, the finish won't hold up. Collectors might buy polished calcite specimens for $5 to $15, but they were not suitable for everyday jewelry. Compare that to quartz, with a hardness of 7. Quartz can be polished to an incredible shine, and it stays that way. A well-cut quartz cabochon or faceted stone can sell for $20 to $100, depending on variety and quality. And premium specimens like rutilated quartz or smoky quartz with good clarity can go much higher. Garnet, commonly found in schist and gneiss, has a hardness of 7 to 7.5. Even when garnet crystals look dark and dull in the field, their high hardness means they polish beautifully. A cleaned and polished garnet can display deep red, wine, or even greenish tones with a glassy luster. Depending on size and clarity, garnets sell for anywhere from $10 to $50 per carat in the rough state, and finished stones command higher prices. Jade, specifically nephrite, has a hardness of 6 to 6.5. It's not as hard as quartz, but it's tough, meaning it resists breaking. That toughness, combined with moderate hardness, allows nephrite to take a smooth, waxy polish that collectors and jewelers value highly. Rough nephrite can sell for $50 to $300 per kilogram, depending on color and quality, and finished carvings or cabochons can reach much high. The third and often most overlooked sign that a rough stone will gain value after polishing is a color saturation and uniformity, especially when the stone is wet. This is a field test that experienced lapidaries and gem dealers use constantly, and it's incredibly revealing. Because when you wet a rough stone, you're essentially previewing what it will look like after it's been polished. Water fills in the microscopic pits and scratches on the surface, creating a temporary smooth layer that allows you to see the stone's true color, luster, and internal patterns. Here's why this matters. A rough stone sitting dry in your hand often looks faded, dusty, and dull. The surface is covered with weathering, oxidation, dirt, and tiny imperfections that scatter light in random directions. That makes it nearly impossible to judge the stone's real appearance. But the moment you wet it, everything changes. The water acts like a temporary polish, revealing the stone's actual hue, depth of color, and the way light interacts with the material. If the stone looks dramatically better when wet, that's a strong sign it will look even better after cutting and polishing. So what exactly should you be looking for when you wet a stone? First, color saturation. This refers to how intense and vivid the color appears. A stone with high saturation shows deep, rich tones that don't look washed out or pale. For example, if you wet a piece of rough jasper and the color shifts from dull brown to a vibrant brick red or deep mustard yellow, that's high saturation. If you wet a piece of rough aventurine and it goes from grayish green to a bright, lively green with visible sparkle, that's good saturation. Second, uniformity. This means the color is distributed evenly throughout the visible material without major blotches, dead zones, or abrupt shifts that look unnatural. Uniform color makes a stone more desirable because it's easier to cut and more predictable in the finished product. Buyers and jewelers prefer stones with consistent tone because they look professional and polished. However, some patterned stones like agate, jasper, or banded calcite are valued specifically for their color variation. So in those cases, you're looking for interesting, well-defined patterns rather than strict uniformity. Third, surface luster. When you wet a stone, pay attention to how light reflects off the surface. Does it show a glassy, vitreous shine, a silky sheen, a waxy glow? Or does it stay dull and chalky even when wet? Stones with glassy or waxy luster when wet are far more likely to take a brilliant polish. Stones that remain dull and lifeless even after wetting usually have a porous or microcrystalline structure that prevents them from holding a smooth finish. But despite the methods all being very practical, there's one more thing you can do to facilitate and organize your identification process. Because each precious stone has unique characteristics like your fingerprints, which are unique. And if you want all this knowledge with tables, home tests that go beyond the tests covered in this video, you can access our channel's book, Gemology Journey for Beginners, available on Amazon. It teaches how to identify precious stones with simple tests you do at home without professional equipment. Also, if you want, you can check out a hardness kit in the description of this video so you can apply what you learned here and in the book in a practical and objective way. But if you think now is not the time for the kit and book, no problem. You can subscribe to the channel for free and watch the next video that's appearing on your screen right now. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Good luck, Gem Hunter.